That was like the female position for most of the industry that I can think of. Then I seem to notice that you saw a lot of women moving into producing and production managing, a lot of the logistical side of things. Then you would, I've noticed the actual creators, the storytellers, the filmmakers themselves, the directors, the writers. And now, although this is still, I think, the biggest wall yet to break, is the technical side of things. I can count on my hand, one hand, maybe 3 female DPs, cinematographers, maybe 4. Which I think is great, but wow, it's really hard. And I don't know a single female audio person. Really? So 1. You have 1, yeah. So to me, that is still frustrating, but the fact that you're starting to see people in those positions, I think is a good sign eventually. We're starting to break down those walls. I also think there's something, and this relates to BIPOC stuff, it relates to gender stuff, but also just bad actors in general. I don't mean bad actors as in actors that are bad at their job. People that behave like non-humans. In a smaller community, those people tend to be found out faster because we are communicating with each other. To a certain extent, it depends on how cliquey they are, I guess, and whether or not the cliques talk with each other. I know just from my side of things, the filmmakers I communicate with are pretty close with each other, and we compare notes a lot when it comes to, hey, this person, should I work with them or not, that kind of thing. But I don't see that same kind of thing happening with the kind of stuff that you guys are talking about, which frustrates me.
Well, I think it's because I would suppose that your clique is a lot of men.
Yeah, exactly.
And so those things are maybe invisible to
Somewhat
them,
invisible,
or they haven't experienced it. And I think it's, I think that's what happens. They don't experience it or they don't see it, and then they're the ones in the room talking, and there's not anyone in the room who would be affected by that, so it doesn't get talked about.
Exactly.
And I think, that's part of the problem too, though, is I do think smaller communities are cliquey and everyone has their people that they hire and that they work with. And I think too, when you talk about these little barriers we're breaking down, I've said it 100 times, like then those men, you might need to go out of your way to hire women. You might need to go out of your way to hire BIPOC folks, not just the people that you work with all the time. You might have to say, yeah, that DP, I want to see what she can do. And you might have to go out of your comfort zone to do that. And I think also though, when you're doing this independently and the resources are a scarcity, then you're not going to take that risk. I think it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg thing in that way. So yeah.
I agree with you, Vanessa, on that, because there are different limiting barriers out there, especially like, let's say, for example, grants. There are some barriers. There's not enough grants out there for women filmmakers. There's some, but there's not enough. They're coming up right now, where you can be eligible, but even doing the dance with the grants, it's just like, well, am I good enough? Then you go down the whole imposter syndrome thing, like, okay, well, am I meant for, what am I really meant for in a film set? And Troy, you're talking about training, on-set training with other roles. Like the last set I was just on, we had some female PAs as well. They wanted to learn other areas like area directing, assistant directing, or they wanted to do design, wardrobe, those things. So what we do on set on the day of, if they really wanted to take something, we would just let them, hey, come and learn. Because a lot of it is self-taught. And I learned by being a PA, and I climbed up the ranks from PA and sound. I've done a lot of different roles. So, and as you're talking about different lists, because people do have lists out there, and it's really amazing to me, like, really got a list, and all right, well, I know I'm not for everybody, and that's something I've had to accept along the way, so.
One thing I've noticed just working in academia for 20 years, that there's a drastic change in the enrollment, males versus females. When I first started, there was a handful of females. I think we had one female in our program of about less than 50 people. But now it's close to half and half, and some years there are more females than males. So that
Well, it's a broader conversation, isn't it, now that more women are going to school than men?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
In general, yeah.
Yeah.
Regardless of what field, yeah.
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 So I think that, yeah, I mean, there's those shifts happening, for sure.
Yeah. Let's see.
In our direct community, because it's so small, is that men can get away with a lot if they have resources. Like someone with a camera to lend out, or a space, or, well, they're the one getting like paid gigs and they can get people paid on their sets. I think that like people will tolerate more from them because there is a scarcity in our community, and I think that then those people get away with things, or those people that get swept under a rug or not talked about, and I think too, you have an industry dominated by men where if they don't see it, they're not going to do anything about it, or they don't notice it. If it's micro, they don't notice it, and so I think that like while the overall trend is upwards, you don't take for granted that someone isn't going to disappoint you or let you down in that way, and that you get to decide whether you want to, is that relationship worth that challenging conversation? Is that relationship worth standing up in that moment and saying, hey, now we need to talk about that? So I think that it is hopeful. I think that it does trend upwards, but I think that also like culturally right now we're not in a space where there's a lot of equity conversations happening in positive ways, and so you know that trickles down in some weird ways. And yeah, I think it's getting better. I don't think it's getting better fast enough, and I think that it's always 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. So that's not an upbeat answer. Sorry, but it's better than it used to be. When I first started out, I was self-taught until I went to film school in my late 20s. So I read a lot of books, and there was a book I read that said women are so rare on a film set that they should be referred to as gynosapiens. And yeah, and when you audition an actress, you should try to get her to take her clothes off for you. And this was like a like well-reviewed book on how to learn filmmaking, and I remember reading this book and just feeling so unseen by this experience, but also so like angry. And then like you learned a lot about what you don't want to do. I think that like I've been sent, I don't know if I can say this in this room, content warning, I was sent like dick pics by cinematographers that I was trying to work with. I had a cinematographer on a set with me tell one of my actresses, just stand there and look pretty, darling. I mean, I think that like, when I first started out, and I was also like younger, a little more naive, a little less, I think a little less of like a backbone than I have now, where I just wouldn't know, I would have any idea how to handle a situation like that. But when I first started out, it was pretty rough, and it was very overt like that. And I think that as it's gotten better, you still find yourself in rooms with like men that you respect who are like writing a script, and you're listening to them talk about this script, and they're like, and this lead female character, she's so beautiful. And you're like, cool, why? And they're like, well, because she's really gorgeous. And you're like, but what does that have to do with the story? And they're like, well, because she's like really interesting to watch because she's so pretty. And like, you have these conversations where like, even as no one's sending you dick pics anymore, I think the understanding of misogyny is slow to catch on and slow to really permeate into these like microaggression layers in terms of like how women are described in scripts, what the physical asks of actresses trying out are, what jobs on set are considered like women's jobs and men's jobs, and how those jobs are valued. I mean, I do think there is still an inequality and a disparity, and like, I am a very good director. I am a very good editor, and I have been passed up for jobs for men who are like not as experienced, talented, whatever your favorite word for that is, than I am, and it's something you learn a lot of patience for, and then you lose patience for. So I think for me, it went from this place of really being at the mercy of these experiences to watching the industry change to now my cohort and I have like made our own little ethics guide where like we try to follow that in who we collaborate with, in the projects that we give our time to, in the projects we give our money to. So I think being at the mercy of that, to seeing it change, to trying to become part of the change, and part of elevating other women's voices and getting rid of some of that ugly competition and things like that can happen, and really just celebrating and elevating wherever we can, and really trying to move away from tolerating even those micro behaviors on set. So I think it's a journey that is not over, but that's been my experience.
Is it hope?
I do see it quite a lot, especially on my sets, where there's a ratio of more men than there is of women on the set. And the last set I was on, we really tried to get more female filmmakers involved. Because what's scary for me too, especially, it's not, so I work a lot on BIPOC sets, and what I see is that, just like what Vanessa is saying, we're really underserved and we're not seen enough in the community, unfortunately, and there's not a lot of opportunities there unless you're creating the opportunities for yourself and you're getting the gigs, because I think we're in such a commercialized space run by men right now, but you can stand out. The way that I see it, you can either try to partner with each other and try to make something before it gets to, I hate to say dramatic on a set, but if you are clear in your expectations on set, drawing the sand, you know, where the line is, the boundaries, where are your boundaries? Because we're not taught boundaries on film sets or even as a creative, so having to learn where your boundaries are up front and what is the ownership, right? Because there's a lot of talk right now in the industry about ownership of projects, and so my co-partner and I, she and I, we make sure that, yeah, we need to have more female bodies on our film sets just going forward and who we work with, so
Yeah.
that's very important.
Anything else you guys want to add?
Sure. I think I started a little later, so I didn't have to experience some of the things that maybe Vanessa or some of you who've been doing this a little longer have. But I mean, I noticed some subtle things. Mainly, it's, you know, maybe it takes a little bit more for somebody to respect what you're saying, or, you know, like let's say you express an opinion and then somebody else, a guy will say the same thing in different words, and then they get like a yay, you know, and you're like, wait a minute, I just said that. And so just little things like that can sometimes notice, but I have noticed that there are a lot of casting calls where there's a male lead, and then there's like one female character who's like a supporting role, and you know, you're like, okay, well, you know, it'd be nice to see a little more of the ladies getting some of the leading roles and stuff. And I think a lot just having, you know, for female filmmakers telling stories about women helps that. I mean, you know, naturally, you know, you're going to tell stories that you relate to. So I mean, it makes sense if there's, you know, a guy who's producing a film, then, you know, those are his experiences. So naturally, you're going to go in that direction. But so I think just having more women involved in creating stories, writing their own, will help that grow and give more women opportunities.
Yeah. Anything to add, Jennifer?
I guess I haven't had too many issues with film community here. I'm certainly not afraid to speak out, or if somebody was inappropriate or was talking over me or whatever. I mean, I think people who know me know I'm not going to put up with any shit. So maybe that's another reason why I just haven't dealt with it too much here. And I've been surrounded by really great men and women. Hollywood is a whole other story, and that could be like a whole panel just in itself. The whole casting couch thing and some of the things that I experienced there and whatever. So maybe that's why also here, like I'm not, it's not as much of a deal just because of things that I saw and dealt with out there. But I think it's definitely gotten better for women in film, for sure. There's not the roles, there's not, there aren't as many roles as men. Women still don't get paid as much as men. As far as crew positions, I mean, it's still led by men. But I think it's getting better, and so I am hopeful that it will continue to do so.
Some things I've noticed just anecdotally, and I'd be curious if you've noticed this as well, but that guy's really creepy. Sorry, I just looked up and I was like, oh my God, what's going on? Sorry.